My name is Jacqueline Guillemot. Today I'm going to talk about the future of the food and the water, especially problems that populations face regarding to access to water and to food. I will consider solutions to solve them. Water scarcity is an increasing problem for agriculture production. The disponibility of food depends partially on the disponibility of water and its quality. So without a clean water, we cannot have secure food. Fresh water is crucial to human society, not just for drinking, but also for farming, washing, and many other activities. This scarcity is caused by several factors, as unequal distribution, economic water shortage, or demographic growth. It is expected to be increasingly scarce in the future, and this is partly due to the climate change. Water scarcity already affects a lot of countries. Around 1.2 billion people live in areas of physical scarcity, and 500 million people are approaching this situation. There is an unequal distribution of water all around the world. As we can see on this map, the world's available freshwater supply is not evenly distributed throughout the world due to the wide variation in the seasonal and annual precipitation. For example, Asia accounts for 60% of global population, but comprises only 36% of global freshwater resources. In Latin America, however, there are 25% of freshwater resources where there is only 6% of population. This unequal distribution is also caused by a mismanagement of the water in some countries. For example, the Yemen is a desert country who has a high demographic growth, and the little bit available water is used to produce drugs. An estimated 1.6 billion people around the world live in areas of economic water scarcity, with 780 million people are living in areas with no basic water services. A non-governmental organization named the Water Project explained that in the developing world, finding a reliable source of safe water is often time-consuming and expensive. This is known as economic scarcity. Water can be found, it simply requires more resources to do it. Economic water scarcity is by far the most disturbing form of water scarcity because it is almost entirely a lack of compassion and good governance that allows the condition to persist. Economic water scarcity exists when a population does not have the necessary monetary means to utilize an adequate source of water. We estimate that we will be 9 billion on Earth in 2050. The increase of the population means that there will be more requests in water. To face the demands, there is a massive growth in industry sector. This one is unfortunately unsustainable because it pollutes, and this action doesn't allow our descendants to use them too. Moreover, these industries have transformed water ecosystems and resulted in loss of biodiversity. Let's figure out solutions to solve water scarcity problems. Among water shortage solutions, desalination is the main. Desalination is the process of turning salty ocean water into drink water. The ocean makes up 70% of the Earth's surface and accounts for 97% of the water on the planet. The problem is, this water can't be drank. It's oversaturated with salt. So, engineers sought a solution. The desalination is a perfect one, except the fact that its technique is very expensive. Today, desalination plants multiply all around the world. Unfortunately, this technique allows to produce only 0.5% of global consumption. To have access to a clean water, some engineers imagine a way to use natural and renewable resources. For example, they have created the solar-powered water purifiers. This technique is ideal to disinfect small quantities of contaminated water. Unfortunately, they don't find a way to use this solution for sea salt yet. A lot of organizations, like the Water Project, have a website to explain the problems of water scarcity and how much some populations need our help and our funding. So, people can donate some money. This is a good way to face to the unequal distribution of water and to more concern the populations of developed countries. Not only do these water collection systems provide clean water for people's everyday needs, they can be used for simple irrigation and can actually benefit crop production by raising the groundwater level. Water is collected and stored for drinking, and the rest seeps into the ground and creates more fertile fields. Food access and food securities are the other subject investigated. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization (FAO) of the United Nations, food security exists when everybody at every time has physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food which meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. The United States Department of Agriculture (USDA) has also adopted a similar definition. The food security is the access by all the people at all times to enough food for an active, healthy life. The opposite of food security is food insecurity. It's defined by the USDA as a household-level economic and social condition of limited or uncertain access to adequate food. Food insecurity can be caused by hunger, malnutrition, or famine. According to Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, around 800 million people suffer from the world hunger, while it is estimated that in developing countries, one-third of all food produced for human consumption, around 1.3 billion tons everywhere, is lost or wasted. The world produces enough food to feed everyone. The principal problem is that many people in the world still don't have sufficient financial resources to cultivate enough food or to have access to nutritious food. They cannot access to the auto-subsistence. It is a problem which is at the source of numerous troubles. When the children suffer from malnutrition and become rachitic, it affects their future income and sentences them to the poverty and to the hunger. All around the world, especially in Brazil, the farmers are replaced by transnational firms. They use techniques of mechanization, motorization, and of irrigation, and use chemical innovations as fertilizer and the insecticide, and biological innovation as genetically modified organisms, GMO, selected seeds, and animal race improved. These techniques and innovations allow more production and more yields, but these firms take the work of small farmers which don't use chemical or biological substances. Therefore, they don't pollute the ground contrary to the firms. Their techniques are good today, but they aren't sustainable. The impact of natural disasters such as drought, flooding, hurricanes, and earthquakes can vary according to people's level of poverty. Droughts tend to hit the poorest subsistence farmers much harder than the large commercial growers, who have access to better irrigation and more resilient seed types. Climate change is having an increased impact on food production as drought and flooding become more frequent and more severe. In numerous countries, the climate change deteriorates the natural, already in unfavorable conditions. The fertile lands are more threatened by the erosion, the salinization, and the desertification. Elsewhere around the world, hundreds of thousands of starving refugees and innocent civilians are victimized by the economic consequences of the war. The Afghanistan and the Iraq are countries that have been plagued by war in their recent histories. These countries underwent a dramatic food shortage because countries fight for financing their armies and cut food to their enemies. The solution to food insecurity must include elimination of poverty. However, other aspects of food insecurity may be more immediately solvable. In 2003, the Brazil set up the program Fome Zero, which means zero hunger. The purpose of this program is to give basic food to everybody and eradicate starvation. For example, the program have created the Bolsa Familia. It's a path to poor families to access to food because they have accepted to send their children at school. One of the key to eradicate food insecurity is to favor fair trade. The fair trade is a movement whose goal is to help producers in developing countries to get a fair price for their products, provide ethical treatment of workers and farmers, and promote environmentally sustainable practice. According to Wikipedia, the sustainable development is the organizing principle for meeting human development goals while at the same time sustaining the abilities of natural systems to provide the natural resources and ecosystem services upon which the economy and society depends. The desirable and result is a state of society where living conditions and resource use continue to meet human needs without undermining the integrity and stability of the natural system. Unfortunately, the wasting is still a big problem in developing countries. Some countries have made some posters, some had to remedy it. As you can see, this English poster denounced people who take more food than they can eat. Moreover, some schools have also established rules to reduce wasting. For example, in the Loquidy, a French school, the students can't leave the cafeteria until they have finished their lunch. Finally, the world population have to face to a lot of problems about the water scarcity and the food insecurity. Fortunately, government initiatives as COP21 marks a critical step in this fight. It will take a long time because the solutions are various technological, financial, political, and concern all the world.